right, there we go. Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. We're back. We've got the one and only Thouzand Floyd. He's come through. I appreciate your time, man. For anyone that hasn't been paying attention, you've got I Tried, a single that came out. It's like a 3 singles kind of came out. Most recently, you've got Red Flag and Die Rich as well. And then My Downfall is something that I found of yours. It was kind of the first song that I came across. But man, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And in a time when hip hop is kind of it's on everybody's lips, I've never said it hasn't been like this for a long, long time.
No, man. I think that personally, and thanks, and I'm so happy to be on here and talk about music, what I love. And it's so interesting how history works when it comes to music and how it's made and what strides are really taken at what times, because like you said, right now it's just like an unbelievable time in music. And that's why it's just so interesting that when hip hop makes its waves, you understand that this type of music, it floods way more than, the areas you would think, like, or the people you would think, like, it's people locked in at all times, man. I love it.
Well, let me ask you, before we get into what's actually happening right now in terms of
Yeah.
the songs, but let me ask you, it feels like it woke us up to be like, okay, we kind of inherently knew that it was quiet for a long time. Like everyone was like, oh, this is huge. But it kind of
hmm
makes me reflect and go, well, it feels like for the past 10 years, it has been kind of stagnant. It has been kind of quiet when this is the thing. Like, I don't know. For me, it felt like people weren't really talking about it the same way. The excitement around the
hmm
genre wasn't the same.
yeah, I believe that too, because music was just in a tough time. And it's interesting, like how, people in general, when it comes to anything, they don't want to keep getting pounded by your struggles. And music has been hard lately just because of not knowing what an artist or songwriter's worth really is. It's so many laws that's in a process of being passed about this kind of stuff. And like that puts certain songwriters and certain artists in a bad place. And sometimes you listen to the stories and the experiences of songwriters and they're like, man, I can't really eat. Like, I can't really afford to do this or that. So it becomes a sorrow story. And then you understand why those jobs matter in a time like this. Cause you're like, yo, like, hip hop is bigger than, it really is, or just music in general. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like hip hop hasn't had a wave like this in a minute, but hey, as much as the moves that Taylor Swift was making was pretty big too, even though that's a total different genre. But I think that it's just been such a time without harmony, or a time without, combination, because people don't understand what's going on. The streaming age, like so much has changed in this time. It wasn't a time to really appreciate the music. And a situation like what happened makes you appreciate the music more. Like me, I'm always in tune with music. I just love it so much. It's just something I love, and I could really witness and see how people treat it these days. And some people may be ungrateful. It's playlisty. It's, listening but not really listening. But all of us deep inside, like when they talk about what's it called? Like what I just said, listening and not really listening, passive listening, right? Like playlisting and stuff like that. They say like, oh, people passively listen, but nah, you don't really. You feel it. When you driving to work, that's not passive. You in there, you feeling it, and it's speaking to you. And what's so important about music is believing what's being said. I've always made songs about things that I believe in and I'm serious about, or that is really plausible. You can believe me. That's what I feel like is my greatest trait as an artist. And I feel like the best artists, that's their greatest trait. Some people just sound good, and that's cool too. But it's nothing like when something sounds good and you believe it. Sometimes it don't even sound that good, but you believe it. And that's what diss tracks are about.
Well, let me ask you this, because I find this interesting in music in general, because, there are artists who've said things about their real life, in music,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, well, you probably shouldn't have said that because you got in trouble for
Yeah.
talking about your real life. But then I'm like, but it is also art, and there should be some allowance for, hey, I'm just creating an art form. This may not be true, but it's just
Hmm.
art, it's expression. Like, I think acting is like, you can just act. A movie star just plays a character. To me, I think
Yeah.
there is elements of like, when you're a musician, you're playing a character, a version of yourself. Doesn't mean that
Hmm.
it's necessarily all true. So I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's a hard line to cross. And like, I mean, artists don't use their real names. So you are
Right.
actually playing character. You decide on a
Yeah.
moniker. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I find the whole thing about, especially in hip hop, I think is really interesting, because it's like, I want you to tell the truth and I want you to be honest, but I don't want you to be too honest. So it's a weird lane. It's like a hard lane and hard thing to come up against, where you're trying to find that balance of honesty, truth, but then also interesting enough to make it almost fantastical.
Yeah. It's interesting. See, it's a fine line. It's yeah, I want you to tell me about you, but there's times where I want you to tell me about your experiences. And your experiences may be a person, a situation, a history. You don't want to knock down names, but you want to tell the stories of your culture or your upbringing or your situation, just like a movie. You go to a movie, you know these actors in this movie aren't doing these things. I know Denzel is not a crooked cop with a white partner and is taking him to the hood and they doing crazy stuff. That's Training Day. You go see Training Day and you're just like, yo, this guy played that person and I believed it. We can know something is fiction and still believe it, like, because you're like, oh, you created that character and I believe in that character. And that's why directors get their praise when they come with original movies. You created a character and I believe that you told that story of that character correct. And that's why, as an artist, you kind of got to know who you are, because there's certain songs you can make, it's certain songs that you can't make. And sometimes, that's why songwriters are a little bit different, because they could write for pretty much every character and they don't have to write for themselves. Or me as a writer, I've written for other people, and I've written, like, other, like, local artists and stuff like that, artists that I knew, that I respected. I know how to play their character, and what do I want to hear that character say? No one said it's not okay to have a character. Jay-Z, he really was, he really did do what he say he did, but not every story he told was a story that happened. But we know that his character is familiar with that.
Yeah, I think that's the fine line, is like,
Hmm.
I think there is, because the flip side of not telling the truth is that people come out and be like, man, you didn't live that life. You can't speak about that. That is also common
Yes.
in hip hop, which is people getting called out for claiming something they never were, or claiming their life was something that never was, whether it be they're more successful or they went
Yeah.
through hardship that wasn't true. And that is also a dangerous game to play, because when you affiliate yourself with something that you're not familiar with, you don't actually know the consequences. And hip hop is weirdly unique like that, where you will have genuine consequences and there are genuine risks that you take for claiming things are not true. So then there's that side of it as well. So I'm just looking at it and looking at people like you, and I'm like, I don't know how I would not find myself in trouble, because I'm trying to do all of it. And I think hip hop is so unique that way. I think that's why everyone's entranced by it and infatuated by it.
Hmm.
And everyone wants to talk about it, is just
Hmm.
because it is so complicated and rich with complexity.
It is. It is. It really is, man. And, like, it is a fine line. It's scary because you don't understand some people who go into that life where they want to talk about stuff that they've never been around, stuff that they don't know. You got to realize, you as an artist, whoever you are, you project out into the world, and whatever comes back is usually involved in what you're talking about, right? So, like, the kid who, the guy who, you know, who isn't into that type of life. Okay, now your fans are like that. now the enemies of your fans are a certain way, and it's just it puts you in an environment that you cannot talk about, but if you but you don't have to be gangster to talk about gangster rap. If you listen to, Kendrick, like Kendrick, it seems like a really like educated guy who's just, chilling, but he probably just been in situations. Me growing up, like I lived in Newark, New Jersey. It's probably not a place worse, you know what I mean? But I can't say like, oh, like I'm just out here, like but that's the life that you around, and that's the, you know what I mean? But it's the life you around, it's the life that you witness, it's the life that you're like, you know what, day to day, I gotta deal with this. I gotta be in certain situations just because of who I know, who I am, where I am. And it's like, if you want to tell those stories, cool, but you got to understand, like, the people who listening to those stories, they know stories, and if you have no connection with your fans, it's just not gonna work. Like it's like you said, it's a fine line. You know what I mean? Like Ja Rule, like they say Ja Rule just came up talking this gangster stuff, and then like niggas, like, people was looking at him like, what? Like you was not like this, you know what I mean? And then he switches it up, goes to R&B, starts doing songs with Ashanti, and then you're like, okay, like this is more you, and it worked for him, and it's a scary game. But like I said, normally I don't feel like people try to talk about that type of stuff if they're not around it in that way, because they at this point people know what's going to happen if you're in the wrong place.
Yeah. Well, I don't see why you would want to. And like
Yeah.
I can only talk about myself, but I don't make my own music, but I can't imagine making music like that because I just know it's so far away from anything I've ever experienced. But I think probably that's something I've never thought about is, and maybe some people don't think about it, is what will my audience be like if I
Hmm.
make music in a particular way? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I don't think a lot of artists think about that. And what, yeah, as you said, what you put out, you will attract. So if you are talking about a particular lifestyle versus a lifestyle, like, I don't know, I'm like, oh, well, I would want chill people at my shows. I would want like women at my shows. I would want like a diverse
Hmm.
mix of like who actually listens to my music versus, a very intense crowd. And maybe some
Hmm.
artists want that. That's like their thing. That's what they feel comfortable with. But like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I just want an easy time. Like, I don't want a drama over the top. Like, I think, yeah, I haven't thought about that until you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things like that I learned, like, coming up, like, making music. And you I remember one of my managers had asked me at one point and was like, hey, like, what do you feel like your core audience is? He asked me that question one day where I'm like New York, like in the Bronx, and it sat with me for so long. I couldn't even tell you what we did that day, because I'm just like, wait, who likes me? Because it might be a difference between who likes you and who you want to like you, and then some people just don't know who they want to like them at all. They're just like, hey, I like whoever likes me. And all three are a part of the business, and you have to learn all three. You have to, and you have to figure out, you know what type of movement am I creating with these three groups of people? How do I attract or move these people away? How do I monetize these type of people? It's just so many business questions that comes with the type of fans you attract, the type of fans you want, stuff like that. I feel like some artists kind of mess themselves up because they see how a particular fan base acts. It's not even the person that they're trying to copy. They just want the fans that they have, and they're just, trying to make music that's just not them, or that they don't, physically look like they should be making, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's why music is just a tough business, because does this listener want to hear it from this mouth? Like, you got to figure out what sounds good coming out of you, and if you like the people that likes your music. Like, it get real fickly sometimes,
Did you have to adjust anything to when you started thinking about the question and answering the question? Did you have to make changes to achieve what you wanted?
Yeah, I had to make serious changes. Like, it was a time where I was making a certain kind of music that just wasn't that much thought out. Like I was just, you just make, freestyles or whatever. Like you just, oh bang, like they'll like that. I'm just me rapping for 3 minutes. And there's a certain audience that does like that, that does like you just going off, and that's cool. But that, what relationship do you have with them from that? They might have that one moment with you and be like, oh, like he was my guy at that one very moment. But when you start making different kinds of songs and you understand the connection people have with you, and then it's also just spitballing sometimes you're just making what you want to make at that time. You put something out and it just makes such a difference. You're like, oh, I gotta add this to my repertoire. At one time, like some years ago, I made this song called "The High Road," right? And it was the first time I really like, what I mean, tried to make an R&B song, like just not just rapping, like more melodic, like something that you could really listen to. And it was funny because I had sent it to my cousin, and she was normal. She sings, and she was like, yeah, like, this ain't you. Like, this ain't what I want to hear. Like, she just didn't like it, right? So she sends it back. So she tells me that, and I'm like, yo, but I feel this. Like, I just don't know if, somebody who listens to me would be like, oh, this is what I want to hear from you. And I make it, I release it, and it was my best performance song. Like, it goes up. I'm like, oh, like I got, like, this one producer hit me from Canada and was like, hey, like, I want to send you some beats. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then he's like, bro, like, I remember you from like some time ago. Like, you was on the charts in iTunes in Canada. I was like, what? Couldn't believe it. At that time, I was with like, I was with a label. I was with the Orchard. Like, I had distribution through them. And it just went up kind of crazy. And it was more for, like, even when I made it and I released it, I'm like, I don't know who's gonna like it, but it's just a melodic vibe that, like, I felt like I was just like, okay, maybe I need to make this kind of music a little more, and then give them this kind of content or whatever. Like, you feel it as it go. But I definitely change it. You might curse less, or make your songs a certain length that you feel like, okay, this is enough right here from this, but yeah, like over the years, you just learn more and more about the people that love you. They reach out to you, and you remember the ones that people are like, yo, bro, I felt that. Like, that's the one. And you put all that together and you go on, it becomes easier. It's just exercise.
There is something to be said about having a music discography that hits multiple people, like multiple types of people. I think, I
Right.
mean, you mentioned Taylor Swift. I think Taylor Swift does an incredible job at hitting all generations of people. Anyone who went to their shows, even people who weren't fans before, are like, holy shit, that was actually amazing. Like, I can feel the music. I think artists show that there is real strength and real success in being able to have multiple demographics fuck with your
Right.
music at the end of the day. And I think there is definitely a lane where some people get so specific as this is the only thing that I do, that it does make it less discoverable. It also means that, like, hey, if people aren't into that specific one type of thing, they just won't fuck with you ever. They just know
Hmm.
that that's what they're going to get. But when you add variety, when you test yourself, when they
Hmm.
know that every album is going to be different and you're going to try and push the boundaries, they're going to be like, hey, maybe I didn't love the last album, but let me listen to this next album because I know that he's evolving or she's evolving constantly. And I think
Yeah.
there is something to be said about that, about the pursuit of constantly challenging yourself. And as you said, exercise.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's, I think what helps with even like a Taylor Swift, like you kind of, you choose some good percussion, you choose a good beat, and you cast a wide net, like, and sometimes, like, if you're just if you're a certain kind of songwriter, it's hard to cast that net. And the thing is, Taylor Swift may not catch everybody in her net, but just over time, the exercise, just the catalog, like, just, long as you have that one moment with a person, they'll usually give you a few chances, especially if you touch them good. with that, no Diddy, you touch them really good with that one song or that one project. If you get that, if you open that door to them, you're just like, okay, I'll look for you. And sometimes people will, people in the business will tell you like, oh, like, you made that one, they're gone, like, don't go this direction, this will hurt you, like, but no, it's just like, I got a couple people when I made this kind of song, and like it's a few more people who like this song, but these people didn't, but they waiting on that next one. They're like, I want to see if you can do it again, make me feel this way again. And that's why I feel like music never really died, like it never really died down, because we may not have had a reason to talk about it, but we always need it. Like, and this, especially people like us who love music, like that's why for us in America, it's, Congress who are trying to figure out what is the right amount that somebody should get paid for music, because they know that it's a part of their lives at their age, because it's something that's essential and it's just not going to go away. And what we talk about, that's about the waves that the artist makes. And, but we're going to always listen, you know?
Yeah, I think it's weird because the free market of music seems to have not become so free in that sense. Like,
Yeah.
that's the weird thing. It was like my view has always been kind of like, let artists make music and then they should profit off the music. But now the way that music is consumed is so centralized into very specific avenues that it has become difficult. And obviously, Spotify profit share is limited, to say the least. I think, that, I don't know, it's weird. Technology has made it great because you get to show your music to the world, but it also means that it's very easy to become a musician. And then you're like, well, the reason that Spotify can't really give more money is there are so many artists on the platform, that there are so many people listening, that like you have to cut any profits that they have by so many margins, that like it is pretty small. I think I had checked, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I think it was like 30% of their net profit goes to artists, and it's 0.04 cents. Like, I'm like, 30% is significantly more than I ever thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
But it just shows, even if they gave half, it's probably not that much. And what, maybe doubles that if you're lucky, goes to 0.07 cents per song. So I don't know. It's weird. I think there is a definite challenge there of like tech and very limited avenues that people now use to consume
Yeah.
music.
It's so accessible that even if the price was raised, it would probably hurt the community even more, or Spotify would have to go up with their prices or something. I've never been one to really argue about the amount you get from a stream. It is tough to make a living for sure, or to live a lavish life, but at the same time, it's just hard. It's just too complicated. It's just too gray. One person pays $10 a month to listen to unlimited music, and they might have listened to your song one time, and they might have listened to this other artist a bunch of times. It's like, even if they made it 1 cent, I think that the fraud levels will be so high that it would just hurt the artist or hurt the Spotify again. Like, it's just too hard to call it. Like, so my personal stance, of course I want more. Of course, why wouldn't you want more? If you worked at any job, you would want more, but I'm not really going out of my way for the price that we get now. It's tough for songwriters who don't release music. If you don't release music, then it's like, okay, it's tough to just be a songwriter and get in a little portion or percentage of somebody's song. And it's just like, hey, it is what it is. But it's tough. I want the best for the songwriters. I think that they deserve a big portion, of big projects and stuff like that. But like I said, the game is too easy to fraud at this point. And like, that's why I kind of praise, like, the earlier generations being able to sell straight albums, you know what I mean? But like I said, this time is definitely way different, and it's just so much more gray. But at this point, it's accessible. Like, making a nice amount of money from music it's accessible, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, who's willing to take that risk? If you want to be a doctor, a nurse, if you want to be anything, you have to give that 4 to 10 years in college, right? You know, you got to make that investment. If you really sit down and start recording yourself, whatever, you make that 4 to 10 years, maybe you would, and consistently work at it like you would work at anything else, you can earn that amount. You can figure it out. Like, it's possible, you know, if that's really in you. But I think that certain guidelines make it easier for people to not just jumping in this for just the money. And it's not wrong with jumping in something for just the money, but like, fraud is crazy. Like, it's going to happen. Like, you know, somebody, they already, I think the labels play with the streams no matter what. They play with it bad, right? So it's just like the regular Joe Schmo, the regular independent artist, like, if it go up to a cent a stream, oh my God, it would go crazy, brother. It would go out of this world.
When you say fraud, do you mean like, fake streaming? I know there's rumors of streaming farms and like, they just have a
Yeah.
warehouse where it's just like they play
Yeah.
songs,
Yeah.
thousands of phones play songs on repeat and they just boost up numbers to make it look popular.
Yeah, I've heard of that. So it's just like, you know, thousands of phones. It's like, oh, brother, that's crazy. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know how you shake that. You know, I think that they're coming out with their own little things to shake fraud or whatever, but you know, it's out there. Like, I'm not, you know, downplaying or whatever, but either way, as I just always, I personally just think about the business end. You know, I'm the guy on the other end trying to get the money, but I'm thinking about the business. So it's just like, when you know that the business got to play a certain way, you got to decide to play your way to earn what you want. Like I said, it's accessible. I've seen people just have nothing, really go hard at this and get to that million streams a month, 5 million streams a month. And that'll really make the difference. You know what I mean? You get a million streams a month, or, you know, 2 million streams, you get around that area, you could be pretty self-sufficient, honestly. You know, Russ talks about it all the time, having like a trillion songs and then, you know, playing it like a business. And if that's how you earn, then that's how you earn.
Well, that's the flip side, I think, of streaming is that it sits there and lives there. And
Yeah,
it
I
just,
love it.
it waits for, like, it doesn't have to be that song that gets you there, but it's the cumulative effort of like, once someone finds you, they have a catalog and they can go back and it can be like, oh shit, there is a song from 5 years ago that I fuck with that like
Exactly.
is what I want to hear. And so that's all you need. Whereas if all you have is physical copies, you need to buy the physical copy to then get it. So I don't know. I think there's both sides of it of like, there is value in you being able to just release music and it's sitting there and doesn't go anywhere. It just like lives there and it has its own life in a way. And then over time, like 3 years later, it might get some traction.
Yeah, waiting for you to have your moment. Like, it could be sitting there waiting for you to have your moment. Like, you could make a song from, you know, and have it up there and just, you just happen to have a moment and then bang, your song just goes crazy, you know, and it'll, you know, change your life. You know what I mean? It'll throw some extra money in your pocket. And if you know how to use like your PROs and all that other stuff, like, to make sure that you're getting all your royalties, it could really spin full circle for you, you know, like, you know, earning in music is one of the greatest things ever, because for a person like me, because I just love it. You know, I love to create it. I love to do it. You know, I love what I make people feel. And it's just, I earn from that. And it's just, it's tough to find something wrong with it, you know? So I'm gonna die on that hill, you know?
Well, man, I like that you're of that view. There are a lot of people who are not of that view that love it and hate it at the same time. So it
Mhm.
is refreshing to hear someone who's like, hey, I'm not going to complain. I can make a living doing what I love. And I'm fortunate to be able to do that. I think a lot of people become jaded over time instead of looking at the fortune that they have. Like I spoke to someone, I forget who it was, and they were like, if one person listens to your song, that's a blessing.
Right. Right. One person, that's really what it takes. Like, you sit there and, what's the percentage? Do they say, like, I forget what percentage of Spotify artists have less than 100 monthly listeners, but it's an extremely low number, right? That have less than 100 monthly listeners. And it's just like, or less than 1,000, I believe it was. It's like, you kind of got to be thankful because you don't have this image some places, and people may say that they're not influenced to listen to certain music. That's just not true. If you're posted by this one, you co-sign by this one, someone might just believe you more or give you an ear. We've all done it, got a reference from another person of some kind of music, and like person to person, of course, but you got to be thankful in a situation because you're like, yo, individually, it's a person who's somewhere in another room listening to me. It's people that know me, that recognize me when I go places. It feels amazing, man. Like it really is something else. And like I said, I'm just one of those people. I'm just grateful for everything. I'm grateful for life. Growing up, like if you grew up in, a terrible place, or you seen bad things, or you just seen certain types of trauma, like you go on to really appreciate life, or you might drown in it too. It's a possibility, of course, but me, I just choose to be grateful for the things that I have, and the things that I love to do are possible, and you get to talk to people about it. You get to hang, and just do your thing, man. Like I said, like it's beautiful to be able to earn from streaming. It's beautiful to be able to create and just throw it up there. You know what I mean? Like, what could we be living in a better time?
Yeah, I think that's a great outlook. I think I realized recently that I needed to shift my perspective into enjoying the journey instead
Yeah.
of just focusing on the goal and being upset that I haven't reached the goal yet today. And I
Right,
think
right.
there is beauty in being able to be like, hey, this is a moment in time. And if I don't enjoy this weird moment in time, it'll be gone and I'll never get a chance to enjoy it. I'll only be able to look back on it in my memories. And I realize that's not a great place to live, is
Mhm.
you're never enjoying the time that you're in. You're never enjoying the work. You're not enjoying the challenges. But actually overcoming the challenges is actually the fun part. If it was all
Yeah.
good, you would just be bored out of your mind. And
Oh,
so
for sure.
that's been like a revelation for me of like, hey, you need to take a step back and acknowledge, hey, this might be tough. It's difficult, but
Hmm.
enjoy the difficulty in it, because when you can solve it, there is some joy in that. So I think that's a really good thing to be talking about is, hey, enjoy what you're doing for the moment, because the moment passes almost instantly.
Hmm. It's crazy because like sometimes, like when you're on that journey and you go through a downtime and you move on from it, it's just you kind of wish you didn't document it in a way sometimes, like, or the little things that you were happy for in those moments, like like instead of a little thing happening for you and you're like yes, and then 10 minutes later you're like, man, that was just so little, that why was I even happy about that? Is like crazy thinking. Like I remember seeing a tweet of, J. Cole saying, I got 500 followers. Like, I'm so happy he documented that moment because the journey is just such a beautiful thing. And if you really enjoy it and then look back and being like, wow, I was really happy, even at that point, it's just like living, just being happy. You just really manifesting happiness, and it's just, getting through the days. It's just, sometimes you could grunt about it, and then there's times where you could really be like, yo, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else than, in this moment. And because all those good moments feel like the moments, like the good moments are the good moments, but sometimes you got to remember the parts leading up to the good moments because those are usually good too, even if it's some down times in it. That leading up part, like that's what I try to enjoy, the leading up to that next moment.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're in the moment right now. We're waiting for the next moment constantly in this Drake versus Kendrick versus everybody else
Yeah.
in the hip hop world. But yeah, what are your thoughts in general about it all?
Me personally, like I've always been a Drake fan, but I've always been a Kendrick fan. And you could like both. You really could, But there's people that can't like both because they just can't relate to two types of music. I understand the type of music they both make, and it's it's a slippery slope when it comes to it, because it's just like, how do you pick a side? And honestly, me personally, like just seeing it get to this level, I never would have expected this to happen. Like, were you much of a, who caught you first? Like, which one were you a fan of first, Kendrick or Drake?
I don't know if it was first. I just thought they were different. Like
Okay.
I never really was like, is it Kendrick or Drake? If you
Yeah.
probably
No, no, no. I
ask,
mean, I
yeah,
mean, like coming up,
S-
which
yeah.
one did you like first? Did you like
So
Kendrick first, or like which one did you hear first? I
so
should say.
I was a big fan of Good Kid, Mad City. That was the album that like
Right.
got me for Kendrick. And then Drake had his poppy songs that I was like, they were like fun to listen to and good in the club. Like that to me was the difference. I always felt like, okay, if I'm gonna go to a project, I'm probably gonna go to Kendrick. And then if you're reading this, it's too late was the project that really got me onto Drake. So like
Okay.
the I definitely had both. I don't know. It's weird. I never entertained like one or the other. I think they sat separately in my life of like two different artists. It was
Yes.
never a direct comparison, and I never even thought of Drake as like the best rapper because he made all this music. Like he just made so many types of music. I don't know. They never seemed to be against each other in a way. Like to me,
Yeah.
was different conversations.
Yeah. Like I never, like I said, I never felt like you could like one and and have to like the other. Like if you like one, you may or may not like the other. Like I've seen people who are just Kendrick fans, and then I've seen people who are just Drake fans, and then there's a few people who like both. But I felt like they coexisted. They make people feel, different things. I don't know what. I feel like I could imagine what everybody feels when they listen to Drake. I can't imagine what everybody feels when they listen to Good Kid, Mad City, or Good Kid, Mad City, or just Kendrick in general. Because me, I have a blackness that connects me to Kendrick in a way that I feel like is also a part of the reason why I like him. Because I feel like the stuff that he says, like you could connect with it on a certain level, just off of the content he's saying, but it's also just about the sounds, the type of samples he used. You're like, oh, like this is something I heard, my grandma playing or something like that, you know what I mean? Or my grandfather playing, right? So, you connect to them for different reasons. And the fact that they had came together, I was like, wow, this is nice. And then things got a little weird. It seemed like things was cool. And then it just takes a nasty turn. And I'm like, what? I would have never thought in 100 years.
Yeah, I didn't think necessarily that Kendrick would respond at all. Like I didn't
Really?
think it would get to this point. I just thought that Kendrick said what he said in the song, that he's, you know, the best. There is no top three. And then, they came out. Then J. Cole apologized for saying his thing. Drake said whatever. I've always thought that. And then I think Rick Ross, then he responded and said,
Yeah.
but I don't know. There was part of me that was like, maybe Kendrick is like, I don't waste my breath on this. That it's like, I said it in a song. Like, I don't know. I definitely didn't expect it to get to this point where they're directly calling each other out for certain things. But there was part of me that was like, well, if J. Cole apologized and is backing away, then maybe at the time, then maybe that they don't want this to go any further. But it turns out, no, they really went for each other's throats. That's what I'm so surprised by is it started okay and then it escalated out of nowhere and they were dropping hours after each other and just like going for it.
I I think that I never expected to hear th- I never expected to hear a Kendrick diss song, right? Because think about it, we've never heard that. That's something we just never heard, right? So in that first period after like that, I'm thinking Drake not even gonna respond. But it seemed like he was a little bit mad though. So I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe he might press the button, like he might have to do it. And then he did it. And I was like, I really didn't like the release of it, the whole Twitter thing. Like I feel like he tried to leak it to see if they liked it just to drop it. Like I just thought that was weird. And then he dropped it, and I'm like, okay, cool. But when Kendrick responded, I feel like everybody's earth shook because not only are you, it's different for Drake. We've heard multiple Drake diss tracks at this point. He's done something that, you know, only few artists can say they've done, which is make a very listenable diss song. You know, Ether and you know, Checkmate by Jadakiss, or, you know, all of these good diss songs, like not all of them great diss songs, not all of them was like, or the ones that 50 Cent made. It's just like, you know, not all of them are very listenable, but Back to Back was very listenable. At first, I like Charged Up a lot. Like when he first dropped that, I'm like, oh, this is pretty high. Then he dropped Back to Back. I'm like, whoa, that's something else, you know? And then this happened. He drops the push up song, and I'm like, okay, this can go to that level. It could, but Kendrick took so long. I'm like, maybe he won't, but it wasn't that long. And then when he dropped, I'm like, wow, like it was hard for me to really, you know, dissect it because I'm still sitting there like, wait, like I got to judge this as a song. Now I got to judge this as, is this what I thought a Kendrick this song would sound like? And then me personally, I hate to pick a side, but Kendrick won. And he won so bad that I'm happy that people think that Drake won, because it has to be some kind of balance. Because if somebody erased me like that, I would be looking for any type of happiness I could get, man, because I feel like he erased him. Like he broke him down, because the Pusha T L was like a L by default, because it's just like, I made you be a dad, right? But with the Kendrick one, it was funny. Like I was laughing, like, you know, like Drake say bars, you like, you know what I mean? He make you make the face, but how many times, you know, on Back to Back, he kind of made you laugh a little bit. Like, you know, not even when she tell you that we better as friends. Then they really broke up. So it was really funny. Like, you know, it was worth laughing at. But Kendrick just with these funny ass ad libs was just hilarious. So I was just like, damn, I would have never expected it to get to this level. And it's tough to be Drake right now, because you got your legacy tarnished in 2016 by people saying that people write your songs now. And that's okay, because I think that Drake is still in the top 10 because he is one of the best deliverers ever. You know, he could deliver it. We thought he wrote those because it didn't look like he was reading off a phone, because he made you believe this is what I'm talking about right now. And Meek Mill tarnished that a little bit by telling people that he don't write his songs. But Back to Back, he still won that battle. It still was a chink in the armor. Trust me. Pusha T full on won by default. And then Kendrick really came to his level and said, you know what? We can make this just about rap. I'm not gone. I'm going to just say what I could say about you. You say what you could say about me. But this right here is a real duel. This is a real 1, 2, 3, go. Like, and he gave him the time he could, all of that. He told him, don't do it. Like, I feel like it was just so strategical, because when Euphoria came out, it was almost like the Rick Ross angle. Like it took me a while to go back. Well, it didn't take me a while to go back and listen to Euphoria. I bumped it since it got played. But seeing what a beef is now, in the very beginning, Euphoria was just, you're not really black. Like, you're not really one of us, right? It didn't really have that pedo stuff going on in there. Like, right? Like it was one angle, and then and then to finish it with Not Like Us. On that angle, it's like, bro, he went from here to here on you. He claims you out. And Drake dropped some all right ones, but it was so strategical. It was like, bang, 30 minutes later, I got you. And that song may not have even been better. I thought it was great. Even if it wasn't better, you still looked at one song as less, because you're like, bro, he gave it right back to you. you're almost back on the clock, bro. You gotta get back. You try to get back, and then he drops a banger. I'm like, bro, it's done. He probably shouldn't even said nothing else. I like the song he dropped after. The beat was nice. The flows were dope. Amazing. But it was it was already dead. It was already done. Even if you want to add that in, go ahead. It's done. It's finished. And he was already talking about retiring. Just walk away. Like just leave it all behind, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't.
He can't now, though. He can't now. He can't go out like that.
Yeah.
Like he just can't. If he retires now, it'll give validation to everything that was said being true.
What would stop that?
Well,
if he dropped another album in a year, I would listen. But it's some people he not going to get back. I'm a fan of the music. I'm a fan of the culture. I personally believe, hey, maybe they, maybe he not what they say he is. Maybe it was just all like, just Kendrick saying things that ain't really true. Maybe it is just that, hoping that that's just that. He still sliced them and diced them. It's people who cannot get those thoughts out of their mind. Like, nah, bro, he probably like that. He probably did something weird, like, and the fact that Drake had to drop like, you could tell what mindset Drake is, and he kind of explained himself in the next one. I'm like, oh no. If it's okay to lie in diss songs. I think that is normal. When Nas dropped Ether, Nas said Jay-Z was 36 in a karate class. There's no way to confirm that, but it's hilarious. There's no way but you think that in your mind and you'll never unsee it. You know what I mean? And I think Jay-Z still did his thing even after everything settled. And like I said, Drake could walk away or he could, keep going. I think that he'll still earn the money, but it's different when you earning the money and you actually the cultural icon. He got everything, it's almost like if your marriage is on the rocks and then it's great and then you get rich, okay, I'm rich, and then your marriage goes back on the rocks and it's just like, okay, I may have everything I want, but the relationship with the game is never going to be the same.
Well, I think what's interesting is Kendrick's allegations and what he said seems to be at the perfect time in terms of the context of what's in hip hop as well, in terms of all the P. Diddy stuff, in terms of like that coming out and then obviously R. Kelly before that. And you're like, and that's what never made sense about Drake's response was like, you got accused of some heinous things, of some like real character assassination, of like some real shit. And as you said, you may never get a lot of the people back. But his response was strange. I liked the angle. I like the angle of him saying, hey, I know why you're talking about it. It's because it happened to you. You're obsessed with it. So you're just casting. I thought that was a really nice. I thought that was a really nice way because it was like
the best thing he could have did.
That was a nice way to be like, hey, you're just projecting. This is on you. But I thought all the stuff about like, I'm too famous, and I was like, that's weak because like, look at all the people who are in trouble and how famous they are. That actually isn't just not true. But I think had he just sat with the like, hey, I think you're projecting, man. You're just saying things that are not true and you're reflecting. I heard your most recent album. That's in there. Like you spoke about it. And then he goes back to obviously the allegations about him being physically abusive as well. And I think, I don't know, it's so weird. I still don't really understand that one's calling one a pedophile, one's calling the other, a domestic violence abuser. And I'm like, holy fuck, these are like the biggest names out there that are just throwing, like they're not even making any shade about it. Like they're just directly saying, this is what you do. I mean, I'm used to artists having some sort of subliminal shit, going like, hey, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of fans might not, but you definitely know. But this is like, if you listen to this song, you know exactly what they're talking about. They got personal. They're talking about families. They're talking about like, I was just honestly shocked that it got to this level. Like, it's great because everyone's talking about it, but it's so surprising. I actually don't know what the fallout will be long term for either of them. I don't know, what will happen. I think for, people around them, everyone's like, I don't know. I think that's why we're all kind of open mouthed watching, going, I wonder what will happen next, if anything.
Yeah, it's tough to say to even predict what will happen next. I just know where it stands, and we've honestly seen people go down. We've seen people go down and go up. We saw Meek Mill, what level he was at that time when he got crushed like that. And he did make a resurface, but the culture relationship was just never really the same. And I mean, it's definitely the same with some of his people. And I like Meek Mill. I don't got really nothing against him, but relationships change. 50 Cent, he went through his super up, like, and he had a super down, but his relationship with the game changed. And it's like, it's almost like when we talked about learning the type of people that like you, and learning what type of people you want to like you, and how do you get them to want to for you to like them. That's what Drake is going to have to go through, because if he cares about repairing things on that level, if he cares what the next civilian thinks of him, what movement is he gonna make, and then how hard Kendrick made it for him to make those moves. I feel like Drake did feed a lot of people. He did help a lot of people get to a level they wouldn't have been, and he did benefit from it. And you can say that in a certain way, probably the way I said it, and that doesn't sound like a bad thing. But when Kendrick comes on a song and says that you colonized Atlanta, that is a gut punch. You can't even go to the hood and give away turkeys and nothing. They'll be like, look, he doing it again. Like, what, how do you repair the relationship? What do you get into? Every person that I've seen go down like that at the rate that, well, not go down. This is a different era. So it's going to be different. But all the beefs that I remember a bit, like where they went down like that, they almost had to get into another lane to repair that relationship. When Jay-Z went through his thing, I think, him becoming a billionaire was almost like an uplifting story, and it's just like he gained that respect, and I like Jigga. I like Jigga, of course, way after his generation. I wasn't an adult when he was really in his mode, what I mean, when he was doing his thing. But I learned to like his music later on, and I was like, okay, what I mean? But it's just like, what is Drake gonna have to do to repair that relationship? 50 Cent started making shows, what I mean? And it's like, we respect 50 Cent on that level. We're like, oh, he, and he still sells out. He's been selling out tours to this date. Like, the respect grows back. It'll happen for Drake. The relationship, I think, will get better with Drake, the people who really got torn away from him with this stuff, because this ain't no little tear away. Like, this is like, I gotta watch you around my little sister. Like, if anybody really believes the stuff that Kendrick was saying or going in that direction, it's just like, I can't listen to you because you might be this. And you said it well. Like, I didn't think it would get to this point, but that's why I think it was strategical. And I think that Kendrick's warnings were real. And we were looking at him like, hey, he playing with him. You bet not do nothing else. He might have been playing with him, smiling, but no, he was serious when he said, yo, don't, let's not take it further, because I could take it further. Because in Euphoria, listen to it. He's just saying, bro, you're not black. Like, you're not really one of us. You just kind of a culture vulture. You just, you're not one of us. You're not in this game. They let you in this game because you paid for them to get into the VIP, or to this level to get this fan base. And that would have been cool. Okay, cool. We could go back and, honestly, after that type of diss, you might be able to be cool with somebody. It was almost like no way, but you might still be able to shake hands after. But by the time it progressed to not like that and family matters, bro, we might never be able to have a relationship. It will be 15 years from now, with that person. Also, in the public might take 5 years to really be like, okay, maybe he's not a pedo. He didn't go to jail yet. You know what I'm saying? So It is. It's terrible. It's like great and terrible at the same time. It's like, bro, these people's lives are impacted.
Well, let me ask you this because we're talking about like their careers. What about
Right.
on a personal front? Like, what does the impact of a beef like this, obviously wide reaching accusations on both fronts, domestic violence isn't good either.
No.
Obviously, pedophilia is a completely different lane, but like neither good. What they're talking about and what they're claiming about one another is not good. How does that impact people around them? And then, if you're in either of their camps, like, what does that mean about like, hey, who do I affiliate myself with? Like, I mean, there's rumors about discontent in their camps. Like, there's like all this shit that's going on, and I'm like, like, you just don't know which way it'll go. Like, you hope that like it is just like, okay, this is over and we walk away. But there's always the undercurrent in hip hop of like, hey, could there be violence when it comes to the direction that they've gone in terms of how extreme it has become?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, not because things happen, and it's people might say, oh, it's it's hip hop, but it's a lot of different. When you say certain things about people, when they see you, they're gonna want to talk to you about that, or they're gonna approach you about that. That's any culture, that's any language. You know, if you get going to that level, then anything could happen after that. Like look at Russ, the rapper, the singer, right? He kind of ended Smoke Perp's career on a low. Like Smoke Perp was talking about him all crazy. They see him at a festival, and somehow he gets his ass whooped, and the video is released. Now you've been saying all this stuff about this man, about Russ. Oh, he's soft. Everybody hates Russ. Making the internet movement about this man. Everybody hates Russ. You know what I mean? And Russ is like, Russ is white. I don't know what Smoke Perk is. He might be mixed or something like that. But he he says all these things about this man. I don't like I said, I don't know what Smoke Perk is, but he says these things about this man. And Russ, maybe his fans might have really looked at Russ like, oh, he's a nobody, he's a wimp, a nerd, whatever. Perp's fans see Russ's, Russ in the vicinity, and they whooping his ass, and Russ is saying, yeah, what you was talking now? Like, that video, I saw that, I said, oh, Smoke Perp is finished. And he pretty much, I haven't heard a song from him since, and that's through people who don't have no affiliations. Like, they say Drake ain't this or he ain't gangster or whatever. But if you at a certain level, you got a certain amount of money, you can make things happen no matter what, somebody will do it for a Louis belt. Kendrick Lamar is from Compton, so, but I feel like he is more like, he in a cut, you barely see him, you know what I mean? But who knows when somebody could bump into somebody. Like, we've seen things like this in hip hop over the years, and in a lot of like genres, period, over the years. So personally, I think that anything could happen if somebody bump into somebody. But as a part of the camp, it's tough. Like, for Drake, he got people with him that he grew up with, so they'll know him better than any of us. And I think that if you really know what your man's about, you're not going to dip on him because of somebody else. People not just going to walk away from him. Them people who he did not grow up with, he don't know, it's some DMs that probably won't be answered, even if it was him. You know what I mean? So it's tough. But like I said, this is different when it's on icon level. People still love Drake. Drake still impacted a lot of people in a good way, but so has Kendrick. So who knows? Like, literally anything could happen at this point. Like, I'm happy that the songs is done, because you don't want to hear them just go bloody. You know what I mean? They went as far as you need to go before you go your separate ways. And now it's up to the people to decide the winner and who they'll go with. But I think that this was one of those beefs that spilled over, like you said, to the point where it's people who will be like, I'm not ever listening to this person again.
Yeah. I think it had the potential it literally impacted both of their careers. Like, good or bad, either way, whatever you think, whichever side, it definitely impacted both of their career. And we won't really know, weirdly enough, the true winner of the consequences until time passes. Like, we won't be able to tell who suffered more I think, when it comes to pure songs and what was discussed, I think it's hard to go past Kendrick just in terms of, I don't know, it almost like he surprised Drake. That's what it felt like. He surprised him. Like, I think
Yeah.
Drake always knew he was going to be spoken about him not, about him being white and about the color. Like, I think he always knew I don't think that was ever something he was scared of.
But
Like,
it was late though. Like you gotta imagine, like it was opportunities. I think I don't know. Pusha might have mentioned it, but remember when the beef first happened with Meek Mill? Did you expect Meek Mill to have a? I don't know if you were in tune when that beef happened, but like, did you expect more from Meek Mill?
I mean, I don't know. I didn't pay that much attention, probably because I wasn't that in tune, or like it didn't register that much. But like,
Listen, I thought that at that time I was in tune. I'm listening. I'm like, okay. At that time, I thought Meek Mill, a former battle rapper, was gonna finish him, or not finish him, but he was gonna impact the fight. Like it was like, oh, Meek Mill's coming. He dropped his disc. It was so bad he deleted it, right? So that was like, wow, maybe he can't be touched. Maybe people don't want to go to that section with him. You know what I mean? So when Kendrick came with what he came with, it's like, wow. Nobody even, well, I feel like Rick Ross really was the very first one to say, bro, you calling him white boy, calling it like, I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, of course it was always rumblings of them saying like, oh, bro, you not really with us. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, his dad is black. Like he got black family members. At the end of the day, like how can you say he don't be in Memphis? Like Yo Gotti knew him when he was a kid. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's just like how do you not, how do you use that? But Kendrick felt like I've been around this man. I can say this, and that's what makes you believe it. A look, you kind of it like his delivery just as a rapper is very good. So like he say it with his chest, and even if it ain't true, he believe it. Right? So it's just it just hit my son like a ton of bricks. Like it's just crazy to even be talking about it.
well, I thought that whole part of it was funny. Like that always
Yeah.
made me laugh when, Rick Ross was saying, calling him a white boy. Like I just think that Drake knew that was always coming. Like it was the easy shot to take. It was
Mhm.
there. I don't think it really impacted him that much. Like
No.
that's what I felt when they were. But yeah, I don't know, to go from that into the other stuff. I was like, damn, it just, I don't know, just evolved so quickly. I still can't wrap my head around how it evolved so quickly and got so personal. Like, I don't know, it just seemed to become a beast of its own. And then there's all these memes and like tweets of like, you know, Drake and Kendrick fighting and then J. Cole's just dancing. Like I love that shit where it's like J. Cole just he backed out and he was like, he must be so glad that he was like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like he must be looking at this going, looks like I get to keep my career and keep it normal for a little bit longer because yeah,
Bro.
fuck that.
But I mean, it's impacted his career too. It has because you bowed out, and some people might respect that. And like, it's good that the tide turned and more people respect it because, it was what it was. But it's like you is the one that kind of ran away. Like you kind of got out of there. Like I'm not gonna say like it was wrong of him. I feel like, but it's just tough to release a diss and then delete it. But I understood why he did it because we all make decisions that, sometimes you like, if I could take that but back, I will. I am, and I respect that for him as a man, but it's gonna impact him too. I don't think necessarily in a worse way. He definitely wasn't the biggest loser. He probably was the biggest winner of this entire situation, but it makes it weird. I feel bad for him on a personal level because it's just like I just seen an interview where he was saying like, I just he said it. He was straight like, in this time I was, around these two great artists and I started to realize that it would bother me a bit if I didn't have a relationship with him and with them. And I think that that's something dope. That's just like what we talked about earlier, where it's like living in the moment. Like, you know what I mean? When you live in the moment and understand the access you have and if you keep looking up, like you'll never realize like even where your peak is currently at is enough to get a beautiful view. And I think that's what he was in touch with. And then this happens and it's like, damn, that's barely an option. Or it might still be an option, but it definitely changes the view for sure.
Yeah. But it also opens the door to be like, can he be fucked with? Like, that is the other lane of like, hey, you bowed out against the two, like the three of you decided not to fight. So then that means like, hey, do you recognize that you're not in their level? Or like, I don't know, that there's part of that where it's like you threw a shot, then you're like, actually, I don't want to do that. I don't like,
Yeah.
I don't know, there is genuine like where as a fan, I'm like, I don't like how you do that. I can definitely understand and respect the decision. I understand and respect it as a man and as a person being like, hey, I actually don't want to do this. I think it was a mistake. I admire the ability to recognize his mistakes and be like, hey, I actually feel bad about this. But on the hip hop front, I'm also like, what does that say? On a broader context of like, hey, you didn't go and fight or you didn't go and spar. At first it was sparring. So like you didn't even want to go spar. Maybe he knew what was coming, maybe he didn't. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's questions about that as well about J. Cole.
I think that it's dope that at least the propaganda is available or the campaign is available that he knew and decided to bow out. Like, I think that that's a good narrative for him, because if you knew and decided, okay, they really hate each other, right? And you decide, okay, I'm getting up out of this. Okay, we all respect you for getting out the car before they did the drive-by. We love that for you, right? But what type of people will listen to you when they know that you didn't, show your thing? You kind of showed it and it was not really that impressive. And like, your situation is just like, it makes, what raps are going to be believable now. Because now J. Cole has to address it somehow. He has to give for me to respect it at a certain level. Just what I want as a fan, I want him to address this in a song at some point in the future to be like, yo, I had to get up out of there. Even if he say, yo, I just had to get up out of there. Like, I just really, you know what I mean? Like, I honestly, even what he said on stage was pretty good. When he was just like, yo, man, like, I just felt like it was lame because I really don't got no hate against Kendrick. Like, even that was enough. That could satisfy me as a fan. I wanted to hear it in a song also. I would like that. But I think that it could change people's perception of him. And, I like J. Cole. I think I'm pretty positive I'm going to still listen to J. Cole's music. I think he makes very, very good music. I think that he's in his prime still right now. But I could see how the perception could change for sure. And it's like, it makes double sense because you done got yourself out of this and you're not obligating Kendrick to mention you, out of context. Because he did mention him, but he just like, bro, if I had to, I'd kill you. You know what I mean? Like, if I had to, I'm YNW Melly. And like, and J. Cole deserved that, at least that, because it's just like, bro, you shouldn't have even stepped in the door and stepped back out. That's like he getting one lash just for stepping in and stepping out. You know what I mean? So if he could have stepped out, if he could have never stepped in, that probably would have been the best case scenario for him. But hey, you make your bed, you sleep in it.
Yeah, I agree. Had he not released anything, I was just like, just a song, didn't mean anything to me. Whatever, I'm still a fan. I'm still like friends with both of them. I have no intent to do that. I think that would have been the best. It would have been like, man, it would have been so good to see you, whatever. But I definitely think, yeah, you just lose a bit of respect. It's weird. You lose respect, you gain respect. They're like two sides of the same coin. Like that's the thing about J. Cole. I respect his decision to change his mind, but I also respect his decision to like be there for a second and be like, actually, I don't like this. Like there is a
Yeah.
part of that. So it's like, yeah, you're like, oh, this was a huge mistake. I don't like
Mhm.
where this is going. So I'm just gonna like quickly vote, my bad, forget about it.
I'm
I'm out.
good.
Yeah. So I don't know. It is funny. I think because of what else has happened, people have stopped talking about that piece. But that was to me a fascinating part of it, of like him just deciding that it's not worth it. And hey, to be fair, I kind of agree with him now. I'm looking at all this and I'm like, I wouldn't want to be caught up in this. I wouldn't want
Bro.
to be like in this shit. Like either way, I don't think either. Drake's definitely not a winner. I don't know how much of a winner Kendrick is. I mean, everyone saw like, oh shit, they can both just like go for it. But I don't know the things that were said, even about like Kendrick's personal life, the mother of his children, and Dave East, and like all those things. And I'm like, God damn, like all of this, it just is so personal. It's just like, I don't know, it hurts them both.
I think that what Kendrick's like Drake's claims are egregious also. Him hitting his wife. That's unbelievable. You don't do that, right? But the weirdest thing is that it's just a little bit harder for us to believe because we've seen a lot of these things before, right? We've seen Chris Brown, do what he did. He's come through such a cycle of, you know, just, really letting people know that it's not who he was, and it's not who he was. He was only 18. Even if you've lived a marvelous life, been a model citizen, by 30 something, you're not going to be the same person you was at 18. I don't think he's lying at all about that. But we do know that when that happened, it came to light. Like that's just something that comes to light a little bit faster than the accusations that are upon Drake. Like, and it's always like, and it's just like, they I don't think that proof matters in a rap beef. If you can't find proof, okay, you can lie, you can say stuff that, but there was a campaign for about Drake being this type of person. There was never a campaign about Kendrick hitting his wife. It's just like, if Drake knew, then maybe the authorities knew. But I mean, that could be the same thing with the other accusations. It's just that all of us, it goes back to delivery. When I heard it, I'm like, okay, but I just didn't believe it. It just didn't sound believable to me. I don't know why, but when you listen to the song just as a fan and with my ears, I heard it and I'm like, I just don't believe it. Like I don't think it's real. Like, you know what I mean? Like I would have probably knew if something crossed my path. And even that insinuation, you know what I mean? And I seen like an interview and he was just like, he was talking about one time where something like that happened where somebody made like a false allegation against him. And at that point, when he was having an interview, Kendrick, they had already cleared it up. So he's just up there like, yeah, I don't know why somebody would just tell that kind of lie. That was the only insinuation I've heard. With Drake, how many have you heard? How many have we seen where it was like insinuations that Drake might be this type of person? Or his guy, Baca, who has these charges, that's on his record already. That's available to the public. We can see that. So Kendrick saying certain things with a certain delivery, it's believable. It's all about being believable, man. And that's what won it for me. It wasn't about whose music I listened to more. None of that. I just heard it and I'm like, wow, I believe these things. Wow. He can lie and say, oh, even if it's a lie, he says, oh, Drake has another kid on a low. It could be 100% lie. But one thing that we do know that's true is that Drake had a kid and another rapper revealed it. Right? So at the end of the day, it's about crying, you cry wolf. All right, one kid cries wolf and there was no wolf. You're like, another kid cries wolf and it's like, there was a wolf walking around there earlier. Who you gonna believe? The person who you can verify at least a portion of it, the person that delivers it right. And I feel like that's why it's just so painful for him, man.
Well, I think this uniquely is why there needs to be proof.
Yeah.
Because as you said, the accusations are so egregious. And if there is
Okay.
any truth to them, then they should feel consequences of the truth of their actions. That's
If
actually,
it's real,
yeah,
yeah, you're right. If
that's
it's real,
the
yeah.
thing. So if it's real and if it is true, I would love to see proof, because I don't know, this is the weird lane, because the accusations are so horrific. It's like, all right, well, you wanted to play this game, but you've opened the door now for these questions to be asked, and now people are going to want to see proof or like clear validation that it's not true, because
Yeah,
like,
yeah, and that's the boat Drake's in. That's the boat he's in.
but I think Kendrick also, he won the beef, and maybe because the accusations against him aren't as bad. But to me, I'm like, even if there's a skerrick of truth, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's weird because either they could both be lying, one could be lying. There's no way to validate it. They could both be telling the truth. That's the weird thing that everyone's like,
Yeah.
well, for me personally, I'm like, I just don't, no one knows. No one knows. I think we were all caught off guard by, again, it goes back to like how vicious they both went. And
Right,
then,
but how many days has it been, brother? It's Tuesday, right? So if you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, on something, right? For Kendrick, have I seen one article, one story of somebody saying, "Yeah, man, I was at that hospital, and when Kendrick's wife came in there with a black eye, we did this or we did that." You know, it could necessarily have happened. Who knows? But nobody else seems to know. With Drake, as soon as this stuff came out, you see videos of him on stage with underage girls, and it's this situation with this actor and this situation with
yeah,
this singer.
that,
It was this
that girl from, what's it called? The
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, that one. Yeah.
Her, or saying that I remember the video of her saying that she texts Drake, and then there's a video of Billie Eilish saying, "Yeah, like I text Drake when I was like 14 or 15." You know what I mean? Like, and I think that those, like, especially for Billie Eilish, like people might not have understood who she was in music or whatever, but like at that time when she had that interview, she did hit a tipping point, and Drake might have been somebody that she looked up to. And I don't think that it's weird that he had any conversation with her through text. I don't know, but if she was in person and like, "Yo, you're a good artist, like, if you need anything, let me know." You know what I mean? Like, I think that that's just like welcome to the top, because Billie Eilish was at the top. You know what I mean? And there's people that when you have, say you are just a rich person, you're at a certain level, it's people that come into the mix. Or when you have influence, it's people that come in that mix with influence also. Like, hey, I like how you got here. Just know, I got a favor for you because I respect you. I can, connect any dots for you. That happens in real life, whether it be, but adult and kid, you can always say, "Oh, it's gray there." You know what I mean? But either way, regardless of what, these relationships have existed and they're documented and it's already available to see. Now for Kendrick, hey, maybe the internet trolls need to do a little bit more digging. Maybe it's going to take a little longer if that stuff exists, if it's true. I just personally feel like that's something you might have got a whiff of a little earlier. Or you seen something a little earlier, and maybe what's available, the fake clues that's available, or any clues that's available, maybe it is available. Maybe it is available, and it just hasn't come to the big public eye. But for Drake, it's just kind of like everybody's like, "Oh yeah, he probably, you know." It's just a tiny bit believable, but that's the problem with having such a celebrity life for so long, because this could be all lies, and then he just wearing it, and that is horrible. That's the worst thing ever. But as far as you looking back at it, like song for song, if you want to just keep it music, that it feels a little better when you just keep it that way, because the darkness doesn't benefit anybody, man.
No, it's so weird because it's like the most iconic hip hop thing that has happened in the past. I don't know how many years, maybe 20 years. Like, these are two of the biggest artists ever going,
Mhm.
and the darkness there. I don't know. I'm still gonna keep saying I'm just so surprised at how dark the background is. Like, it's the biggest news ever, and it's also one of the darkest shit ever. I think that plays a part, but I think the things you spoke about do warrant some merit, which is like, yeah, the rumors about Drake on the internet just became so wild, like they just started to blow up everywhere. But the validation of his claims against Kendrick, I have seen nothing about that side. Like I haven't seen anyone say, actually, here's a video or here's something or here's anything. It's all been corroborating what, obviously all circumstantial in
Hmm.
that sense. So I think that's important to say. They're all just like circumstantial, but where there's smoke, there's fire is what they say. We all hope that none of it is true, but at the same time, there is now a lot of speculation around the
Hmm.
truth. Um,
Yeah, the
that's the
game is
wild
tough.
thing.
Yeah, the game is so tough when it comes to stuff like this, like because it gets this thick. When you see uh Taylor Swift in a serious situation with Scooter Braun, it doesn't look like this. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. It doesn't have the same, you know what I mean, the same oomph like this. But it is a big thing just like this. It is people's livelihood at stake just like this. And it impacts people. But that's really just what life is, man. And you gotta kind of just take with it. You gotta take those L's or whatever it is, and then you gotta move on. And you just gotta be true to yourself. Like that's why people root for the underdog, because the underdog is usually more sincere. They're probably the most honest. Like, listen, I'm the little guy. It's so hard to say I'm the little guy. You know what I mean? And then when somebody says it, it's a different respect for you. When you're saying I'm the big guy, I'm the big bad boss, it's just like, okay, that can easily, the perception of the big bad boss can change every day, because people want to be bosses. They want to be that, you know what I mean? But sometimes you got to bark to be the boss. And if you've been barking for a certain amount of time, and then a whole nother energy of, hey, I'm the little guy and I can bark just as loud as you, that is monumental always. Taylor Swift fighting for her rights back. She like, look, I'm the little guy because I signed this or I was stuck in this deal, but now it's on. I can bark loud now. So what else is there? We got to move the living room table, and now we got to do this. When you, the big brother, eventually your little brother gets big enough and they're like, okay, like, yeah, I know you got used to whooping my ass, but like now we can really do this. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like Drake was always the numbers guy, numbers, this and that. And then Kendrick is like, oh yeah, like now I can play the numbers game with you. So let's take this as far as you want to take it. Okay, you want to play nice. Okay, let's talk the white stuff. Okay, then we go to that next level. Okay, we want to talk about family. Let's do the family thing. Okay, you want to talk about hits. Let's make hits and call you and like try to tarnish your reputation, and then Drake is saying the whole you short and this and that, and it's like, okay, but he already said he was a little guy. He already has been a little guy. Those bars were wasted, because I'm like, okay, you're a tall guy calling a short guy short. It's like, okay, it'll be different if he felt some type of way about being short, but he's like, nah, I'm okay with that. I stand in the front. I don't stand in the back so no one can see how tall I am. I stand in the front. I'm right here. And it's just like, okay, so you got a few wasted bars in there, and now Kendrick is like, bro, I could play the numbers game with you. And I think that's the worst. That might be the second worst part, but between it being dirty, like Kendrick challenging for a number one is just like, what? Like the little guy might have won.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, I think there will be analysis over this for years to come, like genuinely years to come. Like this will be something that is spoken about. It's so weird. There are so many memes of like guys explaining, okay, you need to understand this beef. This is like the biggest thing in hip hop. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny. I do the same thing to my girlfriend. I'm like, you don't understand. She's not into hip hop at like it's just not her
Right.
thing. And I'm just like, you just like just I actually need to take her through it, all of it, because like since I could tell she wasn't interested, but now it's so interesting. But man,
Hmm.
I just want to say I appreciate you coming through. I mean, we've been going for what is it, like almost an
Oh
hour and a
man.
half.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
so interesting in terms of what's happening in the scene. It's exciting. to see, but also exciting to see what you do, my friend. It's great to see that you're releasing music, and the energy that you have and the excitement that you have over
Yeah.
your own career is amazing to see. And I think a lot of people can take some inspiration off that and come into their own careers or journeys with the same thing, man. So it's been an absolute pleasure. I only
Oh
have one
yeah.
question for you. I almost forgot my last question, was so wrapped up. But
Right.
if you had to recommend one album that everyone had to listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, can be any genre of music, cannot be your own music, what would it be?
Couldn't be my own music. Uh Man, it's really tough. It's really tough. I think that it's crazy that we're having this conversation, but I think that Good Kid, Mad City might be the best album that I've ever heard. Like it's probably number one, and it wasn't an album where I liked every single song. I don't think there's any albums where I liked every single song, but to understand what, you know, what rap can make you feel, or what a person can do for you just by rapping, it's there. Because it's not to say that singing isn't amazing. I think singing is amazing, but singing kind of chooses you. Some people have amazing voices, right? And I think rappers like that, I think it's important to have a very good voice, but it's just like when you can't do a lot with your voice, hit these notes, do all this other stuff, it's just like it kind of bring you back to the basics. How can I say something that you'll feel and you'll love? And I think that Good Kid, Mad City was one of those. And yeah, that's probably the one I would be like, yeah, that's the one that you gotta listen to. But for me, it's a bunch of albums. Honestly, I think that if I could pick two, it would probably be Good Kid, Mad City, and maybe the I can't choose between the Eminem Show and what's the other one? Might be the maybe not the Eminem Show. It might have been some shady, no, not some shady LP. Maybe it's the one after that. I can't remember the name, but Eminem was one of my favorite. Is one of my favorite rappers. Like that 90s to 2000 version of Eminem was just amazing. I think he made some of the greatest music, and it might have been dark, but it was some of the most artistically done dark shit that I've ever heard in my life. So definitely an Eminem album also. But yeah, those are my two of my top two. I know usually people do a top five because
Well, it's not a top five. It's just
yeah.
like an album that everybody should listen to. That's all it is. It doesn't even have to be your favorite album. It's just like this question about like who do you think people should, like, an album everyone should appreciate.
Yeah. I think that those two are definitely two, but it's gotta be. I think you would have to listen to maybe Scorpion too. That was one of the best albums I've heard. That was a great album. I think that was great because it was just that one was very authentic. It's just so hard talking about Drake albums these days because it's just what I feel when I create music is just like, you know, it's just not or the feeling that I like hearing, or the part about music I love the most. It's hard to say that when if you didn't write it all yourself. So it's just
I
tough.
I agree with you, man. I agree. But that is a whole different conversation for us. I guess we'll have to do it again. But man,
Oh, I'd love
absolute
to.
pleasure. It was obviously meant to be when you mentioned Good Kid, Mad City, the beef. Obviously, we had to talk about. But man, absolute pleasure. I'm excited to see
Definitely.
what you do with your career and where you go next. But man, is there anything you wanted to plug or anything you wanted to shout out before we wrap it up?
Not much at all, man. Just I'm sure we'll have a conversation again. So it was definitely a pleasure. I'm Thousand Floyd. You can find me on all platforms. I can't tell you just a song because who knows what song that you'll love when you go listen to someone's music. I think that it's important for the people to choose. But it's really been a pleasure, man. We'd love to do it again.